You've met someone who seemed to prefer being alone. Not lonely, not sad, just alone by choice again and again. Maybe that someone is you. You call it independence. You call it not needing people. And on the surface, that's a reasonable story. Some minds just run quieter than others. But that's only the surface. Here's the strange part. If it were really about preference, it wouldn't come with a script this well rehearsed. Notice how fast the explanation arrives whenever someone asks why you're not close to more people. I just don't need that. Most people are exhausting. The answer comes too smoothly for something that's supposedly just personality. Freud had a name for answers that arrived that smoothly. He called it intellectualization, turning a feeling into a thought before the feeling has a chance to be felt. Ideas are safe. Ideas don't ask you to be vulnerable. Ideas don't leave. So layer one comes off. It was never really preference. It was defense, wearing preference as a disguise. Most people would stop there and call that the answer. Fear of getting hurt. Simple enough. It isn't, because if it were only fear of getting hurt, you'd expect caution. What you actually see is something stranger, a kind of preemptive exit, leaving before anyone even gets close enough to hurt you. That's not caution. That's something being protected far more urgently than your feelings. Read that again. You don't fear people leaving. You fear being known first. Those are not the same fear. Carl Jung called the thing underneath this the shadow. The parts of yourself you refuse to look at, so you push them into the dark and pretend they belong to someone else. For a sharp analytical mind, the shadow is rarely rage or greed. It's need. It's the terror of being ordinary, dependent, easily hurt like everyone else. Being too smart for small talk feels a lot better than admitting you're afraid no one stays once they know the ordinary parts of you. So layer two comes off. It was never just fear of rejection. It was fear of being witnessed. And to be clear, solitude itself was never the problem here. Some people genuinely recharge alone, and that's not a wound. That's just wiring. The question was never whether you enjoy your own company. The question is whether you can still move towards someone when you actually want to, or whether the door only opens one way. Imagine opening your phone. 10 unread messages. You answer none of them. Not because you're busy, because every reply feels like opening a door you'd rather keep closed, and you can't fully explain why, only that closing it again felt like relief. That relief is the tell. Now here's the part almost nobody says out loud, and it's the actual center of this video. The biggest mistake isn't isolating yourself. It's believing the isolation is your personality, because a personality is who you are. A strategy is just something you learn to do. And strategies, unlike personalities, were built for a specific situation, which means somewhere they made sense. Go back far enough and you'll usually find it. A chaotic home, an unpredictable parent, a room where needing something got you mocked instead of held. In that room, being sharp and self-sufficient wasn't a personality trait. It was survival. The mind adapted the only way it knew how. It got smart instead of soft, because smart didn't get hurt as easily. The strategy worked. That's the problem. It worked so well it never got told the danger was over. Most people assume the sharpest, most analytical minds feel the least. Psychologist Elaine Aron's research on highly sensitive people found close to the opposite. People who process information more deeply often register emotional stimuli more intensely, including rejection. If you feel more and thinking makes you feel less, thinking becomes the exit. Analysis becomes anesthesia. Your intelligence didn't imprison you. It built you a prettier prison and handed you the blueprint as proof you designed it on purpose. Nietzsche saw a version of this a century earlier, a kind of solitude that calls itself freedom, so it never has to be named as fear. Armor with better branding. He wasn't warning you away from solitude. He was warning you not to confuse isolation with strength. Picture the room now. Someone across from you is telling a personal story, voice cracking slightly, clearly hoping for something back. You notice yourself doing it, stepping outside the moment to analyze it instead of joining it. You could say the honest thing. Instead, you make a sharp observation about human behavior in general. It lands well. It also costs you nothing, and it keeps the other person exactly one step away, permanently, without either of you ever agreeing to that distance out loud. Some people hide behind lies. Intelligent people hide behind explanations. You can watch this play out anywhere once you know what to look for. On dating apps, in the profile with 3 clever paragraphs about niche interests and 0 sentences about what the person actually wants. In meetings, in the colleague who can dismantle any argument in the room but goes quiet the moment someone asks how they're really doing. On social media, in irony worn as a permanent setting, because sincerity is the one thing that can actually be mocked. And being mocked is the one risk the analytical mind refuses to price in. Even friendship gets this treatment. Plenty of people admire the sharp mind. Almost none of them have seen it cry. Admiration keeps you at the podium. Intimacy puts you in the audience, unguarded, waiting to see if anyone claps for the parts of you that aren't impressive. Schopenhauer named this exact tension 2 centuries ago. The porcupine dilemma. Porcupines huddle together for warmth. Get too close, and the quills draw blood. So they keep adjusting, close enough not to freeze, far enough not to bleed. He believed this was the permanent compromise of human closeness, especially for people who feel deeply and think sharply at once. Some find that middle distance. Others, tired of getting pricked, just stop moving closer at all. He wasn't arguing that closeness was impossible. He was mapping the exact distance where warmth and safety could still coexist. That's not wisdom on its own. That's a nervous system protecting a wound nobody ever treated. And the body knows it, even when the mind insists otherwise. Attachment research going back to Mary Ainsworth shows people with an avoidance style will confidently say, "I don't need this," while their stress response spikes the moment someone gets close. The mind writes the explanation, the body writes the receipt. So the isolation was never really about being too smart for people. The smartest defense mechanism isn't denial. It's having a reason for everything, so convincing that even you stop questioning it. Notice it this week. Notice the moment right before you make the joke instead of saying the honest thing. Notice the argument you build instead of the feeling you admit. Notice the friend you keep at the exact same distance every single time. Never an inch closer, never an inch further. None of this means the wall needs to come down overnight. That wall was built for a reason, protecting a version of you that didn't know any other way to survive. But protection and isolation were never actually the same thing. One kept a child safe. The other just keeps an adult alone. The goal was never to become someone who needs everyone. The goal is to become someone who can still choose closeness without it costing you the self you fought so hard to protect. So the next time the joke arrives before the honest sentence does, the next time an explanation shows up where a feeling should have been, pause for exactly 1 second. Not to force the vulnerability, just to ask yourself which one this actually is. Protection or choice. You've met someone who seemed to prefer being alone. It was never preference. It was protection, wearing a very convincing disguise, still standing guard long after the war ended. The human mind is full of patterns we rarely notice. The fears we carry, the habits we repeat, the stories we tell ourselves about who we are. Some of these patterns help us grow. Some quietly keep us trapped. The hardest part is that we often mistake these patterns for our personality. But understanding where they come from gives us the chance to choose what comes next, one pattern at a time.